Well, hello again, everyone, and welcome to our latest webcast that we're bringing you from Travel Weekly as part of our Roadmap to Recovery series. You'll see I'm joined again by Steve Heapy, who is, of course, the Chief Executive of Jet2.com and Jet2 Holidays. And Steve's very kindly agreed to join me this morning. It's just a few hours, really, after the announcement by Grant Shapps and the government last night. We were hoping for an expansion of the green list. We thought it might be limited, but we thought there might be a few extra destinations added on. And I think what happened was not what anyone was expecting. Steve, what did you make of yesterday's announcement?
Devastated, angry, confused. It's soul destroying, really, for everybody in the industry. I mean, the government had said that it would provide a clear framework for emerging out of lockdown and getting travel going again. And it sounded reasonably sensible. And then it's just thrown it out of the window. We're supposed to be having the green watch list. We're supposed to be getting notice when destinations are going off sale. And like Corporal Jones in Dad's Army, they just seem to be running around saying, "Oh, don't panic." And the first sign of a rise in infection rates, the destination's pulled. So is that now the government's policy, that if there's a rise in infection rates, we lock down again? Because if that's the case, then I just can't see what's going to happen in the future, because there will be a rise in infection rates. There will be new variants. There's been a new variant of the flu virus for decades, and the government, successive governments, have quite happily accepted that there are new variants, that people get ill and people unfortunately die. They've accepted it. But I don't know what the government's policy is for COVID, and I think they need to tell us. Are they going for zero infections, zero deaths? Yeah. Because if they are, then that, in my opinion, is unachievable.
Yeah, okay. But well, let's pick up on that point, because we thought we understood what the criteria was. They laid it out in the Global Travel Task Force, hadn't they? So it was based on the science. And yet there are quite a number of destinations that would therefore, based on what they said, should be on a green list, yet they're not. So yeah, it's happening. You say you don't understand what they're doing, but it does seem very difficult to understand, because they're not even sort of playing by the criteria that they set out.
Exactly. I mean, if you look at some of the destinations, I've got them here. We've got Malta, 7-day infection rate 7.4, first dose vaccination 63.4, much better than the UK. The Balearics is 19% infection, 38% vaccination. The Canaries, 32% 7-day rate, 38% vaccination. Much better. I mean, they're much better or similar to the UK, and none of those have been put in. So it seems that the prevalence of any new variants around the globe will now cause the government to lock down.
So yesterday there was all this talk about this Nepal variant, which was splashed all over the front page of the Mail, and yet very quickly afterwards the World Health Organization came out saying there was no new Nepal variant. So even that is, we're not sure about that. So do you think that's what's driven this? Surely it's other stuff than that.
I think the honest truth, Lucy, and it's a shame to say this, I really don't know who's running the country now. Prime Minister Vallance and Health Secretary Whitty, I don't know, because we just seem to be run by the scientists now. And as I said, it's a shame to say it, but I don't know who's running the country, because Boris Johnson spending all his time going around vaccine factories and holding children's tea parties at Downing Street, and holding his thumbs up to the camera at every opportunity. My message would be, get behind your desk and run the country. The country doesn't want to see you touring the country and holding children's tea party. They want to see you behind a desk, running the country, telling us what's going on, telling us what the criteria is, trying to persuade us that we're not going to go back to the dark ages because we're now run by Prime Minister Vallance. who will just lock the country down at the first opportunity.
Yeah, okay. Let's just get into a few of the specifics, Steve. Obviously, what most people are very upset about is Portugal being taken off green and moving to amber. A couple of things there. We were told there was going to be this green watch list to give us warning, and that obviously hasn't happened. A lot of people are overseas in Portugal. A lot of people got a lot of bookings ahead to Portugal, and I guess the biggest thing as well is it's just going to really damage consumer confidence, because people are going to have that worry of that, you know, it's going on, it's coming off, are they going to get stranded, are they going to have to then rush home? So has that been the biggest headache of this overnight?
It'll be a massive headache for some of our competitors, because they are flying at the moment, and they're going to have to bring people home and incur big empty leg costs again. We set up not to start till the 24th of June because we always suspected that the startup would be very messy. So we're not affected in that way, but our competitors are. The government said the reason for the framework last time was so we didn't have a year like last year, where we're in and out like the okey-cokey. And now we are, 3 weeks after starting operations to Portugal, airlines have now got to stop and pull everyone out. People, not having been away for 2 years, wanted the little bit of sunshine and then a little bit of return to normality, and now they've been pulled home. I think it's terrible. The image isn't great for the industry. I think we're going to live with the consequences of this for a long time, because customer confidence will take a massive hit. I mean, people just aren't going to want to book, because they're going to think, okay, well, I was going to book, but I might get pulled home early, like those poor people in Albufeira now that have got to come home or face, for a family of 4, a £6,000 bill for staying in a travel lodge for 2 weeks.
Yeah, all right. Okay, so you've said in a statement you've said in your statement that you're now going to be pushing your start date back even further, as it was the 24th of June. You're now pushing it back to July 1st for most destinations, which gives you a little bit more time. Are you confident now about the 1st of July? I mean, I guess you have to put a line in the sand somewhere.
We have to be confident, because we're gearing up to start our operation, and if we're not confident, we would be committing the company to ramping up costs unnecessarily. Some of it's hope, but I would hope that the government will realise that the Nepal variant and these other variants aren't perhaps as bad as they thought, and return to the roadmap. I know they want to do the big unlocking on 21st of June domestically, and I think if we carry on reasonably successfully, there's a chance that some foreign travel could be allowed by the beginning of July. But I really think the government owe it to us, and yes, they do owe it to us because they're elected. They need to tell us what the data requirements are for being red, amber or green, what their policy is. Are they going for 0 infections? Are they going for 0 deaths? Or what is the policy that they're following? And if the government doesn't know, then perhaps they can put Prime Minister Whitty on the television and he can tell us what the government's policy is. Because, I mean, my frustration is enormous at the moment, because I just feel like we're in a rudderless ship, and I think we're a country run by scientists, and if a group of people is given power, they don't want to let that go.
So when you say you want them to explain the data, be much more transparent about the numbers that they're looking at and that they're making their decisions on, I mean, what are you actually going to, I know it's easy just to say we want that, but are you going to ramp up your sort of lobbying for that? What practically are you, and it won't just be you, I know it'll be other companies too, but what can we actually do now from you know?
Well, you're right. We do need to ramp up our lobbying, and there's three, I guess, big bodies in the UK, the industry bodies that will lobby, and I would, call for them all to come together. That's ABTA, Airlines UK, and Airport Operators Association.
Yeah.
Those three all have interests that are perfectly aligned: airlines, airports, and then travel agents, tour operators. And I think we should come together and lobby the government very hard and try and make them understand what the consequences of the decisions are. Now, that's not to say that we are completely ignorant of the consequences of opening up too early or to too many places, but I think the government owes it to us to explain what their policy is. If they can spare time in between children's tea parties, etc., then that would be very magnanimous of them.
Yeah.
But
there was a call yesterday saying we must now call on the heads of Jet2, BA, TUI and EasyJet to apply pressure to the government. No other industry has been treated with such negligence. It's scandalous. That was from a travel agent. So, can you give your assurances that you will be stepping up your pressure and hopefully joining forces with other companies and other associations?
100%. Yeah, I will be pushing, and I'll say on record, I would like the AOA, ABTA, Airlines UK to come together and lobby the government jointly. We will be doing it individually, and I would urge, everybody in this country has a right to lobby. Everybody has a right to complain, and everybody has a right to ask for clarification as to what's going on. So I would say everybody in the travel industry, get in touch with your MP and ask them to tell you what the policy is. MPs they're either in opposition, in which case they should be understanding and challenging policy, and if they're on the side of the government, they should know what the policy is and be able to tell you. So I would say get in touch with MPs and say, what is the COVID policy? Because we don't know, and all we're doing is having new edicts passed on us by ministers from the scientists. The ministers are just message carriers, I think. And then we have to live with the consequences. So yes, we will be lobbying very hard. I've got a lot of time in my diary. I've cleared my diary out for the next few days, and we're going to be coming up with a plan to try and find out what's going on. If I have to, I'll get a train down to London and go and doorstep these people and find out what the hell's going on. Because I think at the moment the government has abrogated responsibility to the scientists.
Yeah, and it must be trying to run a business, trying to plan, whether it's as large as yours or even if you're a small travel agent, running a business at the moment when you don't know what you're going to be able to sell, it's just must be so hard.
Very hard. I mean, the size of the business is almost somewhat irrelevant. I mean, we've just, as you saw yesterday, raised money in the bond market, and we're in a healthy position. But there's lots of companies out there, independent travel agents that are literally on the breadline, and another body blow like this could be catastrophic for them. We're all important as each other, and I really feel for these smaller companies, because they don't have perhaps the lobbying power or ability that we have, and they're even more in the dark than we are. And the other thing that annoyed me about yesterday, we found out via the ticker tape on BBC, where it was saying there was rumours that this was going to happen, and then it was finally confirmed on Sky. We got no advance notice of it.
Some hours later, I mean, it dragged on for hours, didn't it? With being tricked little leaks. I mean, that's been fairly sort of consistent, hasn't it, with this government through the pandemic? Things have always been leaked.
I don't know if that's one of the new policies as well, that they don't talk directly to us, but we found out via the rumour mill, which isn't good, because I had people ringing me, our colleagues, hotel partners, travel agents saying, what's going on? I've just seen this rumour on the BBC, and well, I don't know. I've just seen the same rumour and I've not heard a bloody thing from anybody in government. So that's disappointing. Equally disappointing, the government are spending an enormous amount of resource making sure they can handle people from red list countries and moving those arrivals from Heathrow to the regional airports. I mean, they put in all their effort into that, to handling more people from red list countries, and they're not putting any effort into handling green countries and extending the green list. I just don't know what the priorities are.
I mean, obviously, there's a lot of people who are suggesting that the government just don't want people to go abroad. They'd rather people's money is spent domestically to get our, own economy back up and running. So there's just not a will to support outbound travel. There's other people saying that it's, they're not ready with border force, so they can't handle the volume, so they're always going to keep that really low. So, I mean, there's lots of theories, aren't there, about why this is being done. I don't know whether you have a view.
The longer it goes on, I think because the country effectively seems to be run by scientists at the moment. Scientists are the last people that would want people travelling in the country to be unlocked because there's a risk, and these are people that probably calculate the risk of getting out of bed in the morning. And I just think that they're saying, well, if we unlock, we might get a new variant, this might happen. The best thing is to stay locked up. Well, it can't be. It's not for the economy. It's not for people's mental health. Something's got to change. And I think at the very least, the government owes it to us to tell us what their policy is. Because we got this announcement yesterday with very little behind it. I mean, the justification was, it's the Indian variant. Oh, it's the Nepal variant. Well, I'm sorry, that's not enough information. We elected this government. They are answerable to us. They are public servants, servants of the public. And they have to justify their decisions to us, because what we were given yesterday is not good enough. Oh, it's the Nepal variant in it. That's not good enough.
Okay, all right. You mentioned you had calls from hoteliers and partners overseas. I mean, what was the reaction from people like, say, in Malta or the Balearics who, who probably were thinking they were going to get some visitors, and fair enough, because they're based on their numbers that you read out earlier. They probably, justifiably thought, well, we might get put on that green list. But what was the reaction overseas?
Utter dismay, dejection, confusion. And again, they were ringing me saying, well, what is the government's policy? I had someone in the Balearics on the phone saying, well, our infection rate's 19 compared to the UK that's 36.5. Our first dose vaccination rate is 38.6. That's really positive. Our infection rates are on the way down even further. We're open for business. Our staff in the hotels have been vaccinated. Why won't you let people travel? And all I can say is, well, it's the Nepal variant in it, which isn't a very, it's not very compelling, is it? And the other thing, I mean, what's the point of the vaccination? I'm old enough to have had both vaccines. I know perhaps I don't look it, but I am.
About to
say. What good has it done me? There is no advantage being double vaccinated from someone that hasn't been vaccinated. There's no recognition of the fact I've been double vaccinated. And they keep saying, oh, it's about the vaccinations,
but you're right. That was one of the keys to unlocking things, wasn't it?
Yeah, and again,
we were, patting ourselves on the back for having this fantastic rate in the UK, and hopefully that would mean things would move quicker. And yet, actually, we're taking a step backwards.
Well, again, in a country that's run by scientists, then we're going to be in the situation already. In the press this morning, saying, oh, we might need a third vaccine to cater for the new variants. Well, is this how it's going to be? It's a third vaccine, then it'll be a fourth vaccine, then a fifth vaccine, and we're never out of lockdown. I mean, the vaccination rate, 60%. of the population's had a first dose. 38.5% of the population's had a second dose. I mean, so nearly 40%, 40%, that's 25, over 25 million have had both vaccinations. And what good has it done them? None, because they treated exactly the same as people that have had no vaccinations. I mean, what are we doing? Now, there might be perfectly reasonable explanations for where we are at the moment and the government's policy. But I would say to Boris Johnson, cancel your tea parties, cancel your visits to vaccine factories, and get on television and tell us what the policy is, because I really don't know. And I don't want to see, and I don't think people want to see Boris Johnson touring the country, holding his thumbs up at the camera. Yeah. Get behind your desk, run the country, and tell us what the hell is going on, because this industry, and I'm sure many other industries and parts of the country, are as bewildered as we are as to what's going on.
I have to say, I'd pay good money to see you doorstep Boris Johnson.
I suspect I would be tasered somewhere along Downing Street.
Yeah, not quite make it there.
No.
Just briefly, Steve, finally, I know one of the things the industry's been asking for all along is sector-specific support, because obviously furlough and grants are all very well, but we can't really make use of furlough completely because we need to be looking after customers. We've said that all along. Now that the government has, effectively said, no, we're shutting down travel because there's not even now one holiday destination to send people to. Do you think that will strengthen our case for getting any? I mean, you've always been like, let's not, don't wait around for it. You've got to get on. I know you've always had that view, but do you think we've got a chance now of getting any kind of support?
Well, I think this has got to be part of the lobbying exercise that the three bodies and individual companies need to do. I would hope that they would consider additional support. I mean, it's very easy to ask for additional support, be like Oliver Twist asking for more. What I'd like to do before we considered getting there is understand what the government's policy is, because if you can understand what the policy is, you can work out what the impact on your business will be, and then come to a reasoned decision as to how that will impact your business and what support you'll need. But in the complete absence of a clear policy from the government for travel, it's very hard to do that. But if they are keeping a major industry in the UK shut, then I think they have to consider additional support for that industry. Otherwise, they're just going to drive it into the ground. I mean, we're in a fortunate position. We've got cash in the bank. We just completed our raise, but I really do feel for the smaller companies, the travel agents that are existing on probably no salary, big loans, having to furlough people. Some of these people have built businesses over 10, 20, 30, 40 years. It is their life, and it's now hanging by a thread, and I have the utmost sympathy for them. And Alan Cross and his team are there to do what they can to help our travel agent partners. But
well, you're right. I read some, there were loads of kinds, but on social media, travel agents posting that it was heartbreaking. It was the nail in the coffin. The industry and my business is in tatters. I mean, this is real. This is people. And people are angry, of course, but some of them are absolutely terrified. They needed a good July and August. And you're right. We may still get something. Let's stay hopeful. But it's dragging on, isn't it? And it's making it very worrying, especially with furlough coming to an end in September.
Yeah, and I think with the travel model, the travel agent model, it's affected even more than other businesses, because they don't actually get use of the profit from the transaction until the people have travelled. So they might be taking loads of bookings, but that money doesn't actually crystallise and really until the people travel. And with no travel, it's very difficult.
Cash flow is impossible at the moment.
Yeah, so it's heartbreaking for the smaller companies. You know, these are people's livelihoods, and I really feel for them. We're doing what we can to help them, but you know, there's not an awful lot we can do. We need the government to step up to the plate, stop abrogating responsibility, and to tell us what's going on.
Yeah. All right, Steve. Well, listen, it is, you know, on one hand, really quite worrying that a company of your size is as in the dark as you say, and that you're not, you know, even clear of the policies yourself. But it's also great to hear that you're absolutely doubling down your efforts now, that you're going to get those answers, clear your diary, as you
Absolutely.
say, and make sure we get that transparency, so that hopefully we can then trickle that down to the rest of the industry, and we can all move on. So we're very grateful for those efforts that you're going to make, and please keep us posted if you get any answers.
Yeah, and I would say to our colleagues out there, you know, don't forget the government was elected. Don't forget the MPs are there to represent you, and you have an absolute right to contact MPs and to register your concerns, dissatisfaction, and you know, if you're in an area where the MP is representative of the government, they should be able to tell you what the policy is. And if they're not in the government, then they should be challenging and asking what the policy is, because this is so worrying for a lot of people. I mean, I can imagine, well, I'm very disappointed this morning. We just completed our funding, but for independent travel agents and, you know, our hotel partners overseas, it must be absolutely, words fail me. They really do.
Do you think actually yesterday's decision is going to, do you think it will push some people over the edge?
Well, I think the answer to that has got to be yes, because it's another period of time where there is no income. And I think, unfortunately, people will be going through severe hardship now. The other danger, of course, is when we come out the other side of lockdown, that the government just sort of says, right, there you go, everything's fine now, you can all travel again. And some companies, it's going to take years, decades to repair the balance sheet. You know, you'll have independent travel agents that have taken loans, etc., to be able to carry on the business, and they're going to have to pay those back for years and years and years. So, you know, the owners of these businesses that are existing on almost no salary at the moment, they're going to continue existing on low salaries because they're going to have to pay these loans back. And I think the government, when we do open up, I would hope they just don't say, well, that's it, guys, off you go, because almost every company will have geared its balance sheet up and is going to have to start paying debt off. So
and I guess
we need,
none of us expected it to go on as long as it has. And I know, you know, obviously all of us, public health is still the number one priority. We absolutely get that. But I know you've always said that all the way along, but they're really making it hard for us, aren't they?
Well, yeah, and absolutely. I don't think there's anybody that can say that public health isn't the priority, but what's the government's policy? Are they going for zero infections? Because if they are, then that's unachievable. And you know, I don't know where that leaves us, because, as I said, for decades the successive governments have accepted an infection rate every year for flu and the consequences of that infection rate. So I think the government owes it to us to tell us exactly what the policy is and to stand in front of us. And I would say Boris Johnson needs to do this as the Prime Minister, that has kept a multi-billion-pound industry closed for another length of time. Cancel your engagements, get in Downing Street, get behind your desk and tell us what the policy is. Because at the moment it's completely confusing, or if Boris doesn't want to do it, Prime Minister Valenson or Prime Minister Whitty, whoever it is that's running the country. But as you can probably tell, I'm really frustrated. But I just don't know what the policy is, and I don't know where we're going. I'm so confused.
All right, Steve. Okay, well, we won't take up any more of your time. We'll let you get on with your day and your lobbying and all those things. So you did well. You only swore once. I'm really surprised.
Oh, did I?
Yeah, well done.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah,
that's
really
a
well
new
done.
record. Thank you.
All right. Well, look, thank you so much for joining us, Stephen, for your
okay. And independent travel agents, please be assured we will be working as hard as we can for the whole industry. We will lobby the government, MPs, ministers, opposition, anybody we can. And when I finish this call, I'll be contacting Tim at Airlines UK and seeing if we can get ABSA and Airport Operators Association aligned and come up with a super group and go and descend on the people who are the decision makers and try and find out what's going on and influence the decisions.
If you get that up and running, Steve, you've 100% got Travel Weekly's support to as well. So all right. Well, we'll be in touch. But for now, thank you very much to Steve Heapy, the Chief Executive of Jet2 Holidays and Jet2.com.
Thanks, Luce.